Hello, my name is Wajeeh and today I'm presenting my MSc Counseling research on men's mental health, titled Silent Struggles Barriers to Help Seeking for Rural UK Men's Mental Health. I choose this topic because I've spent much of my life in highly masculine environments. Right up till undergrad, I was in all boys education where there was little room for emotional expression. The men around me often embodied this idea of being strong and self reliant. That left me curious. What happens to the emotions that get bottled up? This research was my way of exploring that silent weight many men carry. Over the last decade, Western societies have made real progress in normalizing discussions around mental health. Yet this progress hasn't reached everyone equally. In particular, men's mental health remains significantly underaddressed, especially in rural communities in the UK. These men face overlapping disadvantages. Tragically, the consequences are fatal. Globally, men are more than twice as likely as women to die by suicide. In Scotland, men are three times more likely to die by suicide than women, and in Ireland, 77% of suicides in 2022 were male. The disparity in help seeking is stark. Men are significantly less likely to access support for mental health struggles. Many internalize their issues, seeing them not as illness but as personal failings. Deeply ingrained masculine norms, stoicism, independence, emotional control discourage vulnerability. For many men, seeking help invites social judgment, perceived weakness, or even ridicule. These challenges intensify in rural environments. Despite reporting less depression, rural men have significantly higher rates of suicide and substance abuse. Geographic isolation, poor transport, and limited healthcare facilities create major access barriers. Economic strain also plays a role. Many rural men work in financially unstable agriculture or manufacturing and feel intense pressure to continue earning in order to sustain their male role as a breadwinner, often at the expense of their mental well being. Even when help is sought, suitable support may be unavailable or inaccessible. Most existing research in this area tends to focus on urban populations, often overlooking the realities of rural life and the specific mental health challenges faced by men in these communities. Despite the elevated risks, very few studies focus specifically on rural UK men's help seeking behaviours, leaving a major blind spot in the research. Without targeted, gender sensitive, and place aware approaches, mental health services and policies risk continuing to miss the mark for this population. The study aims to explore the psychosocial factors associated with mental health help seeking among men in the rural UK and gain deeper insight into the broader landscape of men's mental health in rural settings. The research question is: what factors act as barriers, obstacles, or aids to mental health help seeking for rural UK men? By addressing this gap, the research hopes to contribute toward more tailored, effective, and inclusive mental health strategies. Moving on to methods. This study used an exploratory, mixed methods designed to investigate help seeking behaviors among rural UK men. The final sample included 71 men aged 18 to 75, primarily from Wales. Participants were recruited through social media, email, word of mouth, and Bangor University's SONA system. Inclusion criteria required participants to be male at birth, identify as men, and live in rural UK area. Quantitative data was explored using descriptive statistics, while qualitative responses were reviewed thematically to highlight any recurring patterns or meaningful insights. Data was collected through an online questionnaire hosted on PsychToolkit. It included 27 questions, both closed and open-ended, exploring demographics, mental health status, help-seeking experiences, and perceived barriers. The survey incorporated the validated self-stigma of seeking help scale and ended with an open text box for any final comments. Participants began with an information sheet and consent form, then completed the questionnaire in around 10 to 15 minutes. Ethical approval was granted by Bangor University, and all data collection adhered to BACP, PPS, and GDPR guidelines. The survey was anonymous, and participants could withdraw at any time. Mental health support contacts were provided before and after participation to manage any discomfort. Additionally, procedures for sharing complaints, concerns, or questions were provided. Moving on to results, we would first look at the descriptives. Looking at mental health experience, just under half of participants had struggled in the past, and a quarter were currently struggling. Among those, almost two-thirds had received some form of professional support. GPs were the most commonly consulted, followed by counselors. This participant's quote here may reflect a broader hesitation. While GPs seem more approachable, the follow-up steps still feel daunting for many men. Participants generally rated both the accessibility and usefulness of support as moderate. Even among those currently struggling, only a few had sought help recently. Many men who had never received help didn't plan to seek it, while those with past experience were somewhat more open to future support. One participant reflected on this difficulty of taking the first step in this quote here. You can see the difference of future plan of seeking mental health help of participants who had versus had not received support in the past. When asked personally, many participants said they didn't feel bad enough to need help or thought they could manage alone. But when asked generally about rural men, each barrier was selected much more frequently and stigma related issues became much more prominent. Things like embarrassment, fear of judgment, and concerns about what others might think. Long waiting times were frequently cited in both personal and general contexts. To gain deeper insights into men's experiences and attitudes, three open-ended questions were included in the survey. These asked participants to reflect on their experiences with mental health support, ideas for improving access, and general thoughts on men's behaviors and attitudes toward help seeking. Responses were categorized into six overarching topics, which we will discuss one by one. Several participants described their interaction with mental health services as unsatisfactory, often feeling dismissed, offered medication without meaningful support, or treated unprofessionally. For some, these negative experiences reinforced distrust and reluctance to re engage with services. Underfunding, long waits, and the cost of accessing services were major concerns. Participants emphasized the need for free or low cost support, especially as financial stress is often a contributing factor. Transport issues further hindered access in rural areas, with calls for localized or mobile services and clearer, well publicized pathways specifically for men. Many participants highlighted the distinct challenges of rural life, particularly for farmers, such as long working hours, isolation, and limited social interaction. There was strong support for community based activities, such as informal groups or clinics that offer emotional support in non clinical, familiar environments. These community led initiatives were seen as both practical and culturally acceptable in rural settings. Participants strongly advocated for integrating mental health into everyday life, treating it as closely connected to physical health and general well being. They stressed the importance of starting early through education that normalizes emotional awareness and help seeking. The emphasis was on creating open, non judgmental spaces where conversations around mental health feel natural, not forced or stigmatized. Stigma, rooted in traditional views of masculinity, was a recurring theme. Participants described how men are often raised to see emotional restraint as strength, making it difficult to admit distress. Redefining masculinity to include emotional openness and help seeking was viewed as crucial. While many challenges remained, some participants shared a sense of optimism. They noted that stigma around men's mental health appears to be weakening, especially among younger men who seem more open to talking about their struggles and seeking support. These responses suggest that cultural attitudes are slowly evolving and that awareness and acceptance are gradually taking root. This study set out to explore the barriers and facilitators to mental health help seeking among men in rural communities. Interestingly, most participants were open about their struggles, and the majority had access to some form of professional support. It's possible the online anonymous nature of the survey created a safe space for disclosure, suggesting that future research should consider similar formats to encourage honesty. These findings hint at a broader cultural shift. Perhaps men are becoming more open to seeking help. Despite some signs of improvement, the support system appears to still be in a transitional phase. Participants rated services as moderately accessible and useful. Long waiting times, limited service coverage, and cost barriers remain prevalent. Rural specific challenges like transport issues and lack of nearby services continue to be a problem. Men also face unique barriers, including discomfort with vulnerability and pressure to live up to traditional masculine norms. We saw that even among men currently struggling, few had recently sought help. Many responded more openly to depersonalized questions than personal ones, suggesting social desirability bias. Masculine norm like self-reliance and the belief that issues aren't bad enough still discourage help seeking. Internalized stigma and desire to appear strong remain critical barriers to help seeking. One potential solution is to offer community based activities that aren't explicitly framed as mental health support. By creating inclusive, informal spaces like men's group or social events, participation can be encouraged without triggering stigma. These can help build connections and offer preventive support. Participants also valued anonymous services, early education, and more visible pathways to help. The data also showed relatively high self-rated masculinity and self-stigma of seeking help scores. These findings reinforce the connection between traditional masculine norms and reluctance to seek help. Future research should examine this more closely, possibly using tools like the traditional masculinity femininity scale, which was omitted here for brevity. A focus study could yield deeper insights into how masculinity shapes help seeking behaviours. Most participants were from Wales, limiting generalizability across the UK. To sum up, this study highlights that while some progress is being made, men in rural areas still face serious and layered barriers when it comes to seeking help for mental health. Structural challenges like underfunded services, long waiting times, and travel barriers are compounded by deeply ingrained masculine norms that discourage vulnerability and openness. But there are also signs of change. Many men in the study were open to talking, especially in anonymous and informal contexts. The key takeaway is that if we want to effectively support men's mental health in rural communities, we must rethink how we offer help, making it accessible, discreet, community based, and free of judgment. This means investing in localized preventive support and creating spaces where men can connect without the pressure of quote unquote admitting weakness. Only by addressing both the psychological and practical barriers can we truly begin to close the gap in men's mental health support. For those of us working in counseling or planning to enter the field, this research also highlights the importance of cultural sensitivity, especially around masculinity and rural identity. It's vital to understand that many male clients may not feel comfortable with traditional therapy settings. We need to build trust slowly, approach emotional topics gently, and meet clients where they are, whether that's in language, setting, or even outside of a clinical room. Offering flexible, non judgmental support and showing that help doesn't always have to look a certain way can make a big difference in engaging these men meaningfully. As one participant insightfully noted, what is needed to address this silent crisis is a place, space, culture where being a man is celebrated and separated from the idea of being a strong man. You may pause the video here to have a look at the references. The references continue on this page. Thank you so much for your patience and for listening to my presentation. If you have any questions, you can put those down in the comments and I will try my best to answer them.